You! Down there! Fancy lending a hand? Oh my. Yes. Yes! Up here! Are you going to help me down? That is something I'd be happy to share with you. Once I am no longer hanging upside down like an animal. No offense to bats, sloths, and monkeys, of course. It's quite hard for me to remember. Must be all the blood flowing down to the top of my head. On account of me, you know, hanging upside down. Wonderful, wonderful. Simply untangle my foot, and I shall gracefully drop to the floor below. Just let me count down first. On 1, 3, 2, 1. No! As far as holidays go, that was not to my liking. I don't see myself hanging from another sign anytime soon. A pleasure to meet you. I am Arthur Mountbatten. And what do I call my one and only savior? That is a tale as old as time, or rather as old as a few days ago. You see, I am a tithe collector for the government in Westminster. It is a title and a position that was foisted upon me against my will. I was tasked with telling the Roundels that their tax had been retroactively increased by 5%, and that they were to promptly pay me the difference. Unfortunately, my visible distaste for the work and my repeated pleas for empathy didn't stop the Roundels from stringing me up on their sign. A sentiment I agree with. I might even say it was purposely unfair, but that is not a matter for us to focus on. If anything, I believe that this encounter is a sign that I should leave behind all this talk of taxes and accompany you through the wastes. What do you say? We could be quite the pair. I'm quite skilled at data entry, archiving, organizing. Oh, you mean what can I do in terms of defending myself? Well, I do have my trusty Webley. It has been in the family for decades, never missed. Of course, I really fire it. Our world is filled with wonders and terrors. It helps to have someone who can help you properly react to them. And face the disgrace of further failure? Please. I have no interest in discovering what lies at the bottom of this particular barrel. I'd rather avoid another go at the Roundels, if possible. God knows what other things they'd hang me by. Capital. Onwards and forwards, my friend. My God. I am so glad you asked. Well, settle in, for I shall now tell you the most fascinating story in history. Now our story begins in the Dark Ages, as most great British stories do, when the Mountbattens were nothing more than a peculiar little clan of blacksmiths, specializing in the fascinatingly specific art of horse mounts. Yes, indeed. Back then, you could dedicate your entire life to a single type of work and never really face any kind of pushback from your loved ones. But I digress. Now, the Mountbattens managed to eke out an admirable life, as admirable as peasants could be in those times, and that is why they were picked to assist in a war of... well, I can't exactly recall the date, but it was one of those important wars, the kind that gets etched into history books. Well, my ancestors, who I believe were descendants of crafty little Frenchmen, they designed the horse mounts for the richest man in their particular side of this little island of ours. Of course, they did a rather poor job, which is why they were forced to go into hiding, followed by a hasty name change to the clan name we have today, the Mountbattens. Not exactly the perfect plan, because the word mount is right there. Oh, but those people spent their days frolicking around in the mud, so we can't exactly blame them for not being so forward-thinking now, can we? Well, skip ahead a few centuries, and the Mountbattens have evolved from lowly craftsmen to beloved artisans. That is to say, they made art out of metal, not that they were artists. God knows my family would not approve of anyone going into the arts. The only difference between a beggar and an artist is that a beggar doesn't make you pay to watch him panhandle. Anyway, it wasn't long before the Mountbattens realized that metalwork would soon become a rather unstable source of employment, and that's when they made the switch into more acceptable lines of work. Farmers, miners, housewives, rail workers, the sort. Skip a few hundred years of simple living and you get to the modern age. Ah, yes. Did you know my great-great-grandfather was supposed to die in one of the first Great Wars? At least, I think it was my great-great-grandfather. I can't recall. Well, they pegged his chance of survival at 5%, said he was meant to rot in the bottom of the trench. But the old bastard made it through. We don't really know how. That's the thing about us Mountbatten men. We have a way for surviving despite the odds being ever against our favor. I suppose that explains me. Our surprising survival rates meant that we had a head start when it came to reoccupying the workforce. And that is how you get to yours truly. Isn't that just amazing? I know. It's what I just said. But thank you for the corroboration. If there's one thing I've gained from all my long years, it's a healthy appreciation of silence. My thoughts, whatever they are, will show themselves through my actions. And right now, I don't know you well enough to act. That facade there, it used to be Periwinkle, I'm sure of it. Only us Londoners can prattle on about this town. The rest should shut up.